Hi.
Greetings. We're doing 1 Corinthians 11. We want to read the text again, that is 11:1 through 16. Last time we concentrated on the idea of, Paul starts it and ends this passage with a reference to the church's traditions. And the tradition, of course, if you're a witness, is something of a dirty word. But Paul obviously doesn't think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And this time we wanted to concentrate, though, on one of the issues that causes consternation here for a lot of people, which is the idea of women wearing head coverings or veils.
Confusion and puzzlement.
and another difficulty that people see there is the reference to angels. What the angels got to do with all of this? So we wanted to read a quote from F.F. Bruce where he kind of sums up what these concerns would have been then, and therefore we can do a takeaway from that. But let's read the whole passage again first.
And we're using the Silver Sword, New World Translation. Become imitators of me, just as I am of Christ. I command you, because in all things you remember me, and you are holding fast the traditions, just as I handed them on to you. But I want you to know that the head of every man is the Christ. In turn, the head of a woman is the man. In turn, the head of the Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with something on his head shames his head. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered shames her head. For it is one and the same, as if she were a woman with a shaved head. For if a woman does not cover herself, she should have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or shaved, she should be covered. For a man should not have his head covered, as he is God's image and glory. But the woman is man's glory. For a man did not come from woman, but woman came from man. And, what is more, man was not created for the sake of the woman, but the woman for the sake of the man. That is why the woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head, because of the angels. Besides, in connection with the Lord, neither is woman separate from man, nor is man separate from woman. For just as the woman is from the man, so also the man is through the woman. But all things are from God. Judge for yourselves. Is it fitting for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? Does not nature itself teach you that long hair is a dishonor to a man? But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her. For her hair is given to her instead of a covering. However, if anyone wants to argue in favor of some other custom, we have no other, nor do the congregations of God.
So would it be fair to say that many, not just women either, but progressives of every gender, bristle over this? Some really stumble over this chapter because for them the whole idea of headship implies inferiority of one gender or one sex to the other. Now, is that in view here? Because, of course, in another context, let's say Galatians and Ephesians, Paul is saying, no, men and women, there is no division in Christ. So what is this all about? And the answer he gives here is the created order. That's why the reference to angels is so important. This is about headship, but it's headship put in the context of the whole created order from God down.
Yeah.
So Christ is, even Christ as a head, and that is God.
Yeah, so it's really the first time I've kind of understood why the angels are mentioned. I always did puzzle over that, like, what do they have to do with this?
Well,
but then I think in terms of the fact that, yes, a lot of people look at this and they think it's giving superiority to the man. But angels, in power anyways, are superior to man. They have a lot of power, and yet their assignment is to serve.
To serve, yeah.
So for the first time I could kind of see an application for why the angels are mentioned. This is not about ability or power. It's about assignments.
Yeah. Yeah, the angels
given by
are
God.
in the Old Testament and the New. The angels are the custodians, the guardians of the created order. They're also our guardians, watching, and they're observing what we're doing. Do we observe the created order?
Yeah.
And here the created order is brought under one head, dare I say, one head, which is the principle of headship. Here's what F.F. Bruce has to say in his wonderful brief commentary on both the Corinthian epistles. The veil, or head covering, is not a sign of the woman's submission to her husband's authority, nor even of her social dignity and immunity from molestation. Now, some Christians do believe that. That's why he's taking this on here. He's citing Frederick Godet, Charles Hodge, and William Ramsay in the Cities of St. Paul. Bruce says, though, it is a sign of her authority. A sign not of her lack of authority, but a sign of her authority. What does he mean? In the synagogue service, a woman could play no significant part. Her presence would not even suffice to make up the requisite quorum of 10. All 10 must be males. In other words, to make a synagogue or to start a synagogue, you need 10 males.
Yeah.
In Christ, she received equality of status with man. She might pray or prophesy at meetings of the church. That's cited lower down, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if she could pray and prophesy in the meetings of the church, unlike the synagogue, in Christ she received equality of status with man, and her veil was a sign of this new authority. And then he cites Morner Hooker, by the way, a female theologian, in her article, Authority on Her Head, an examination of 1 Corinthians 11, and he gives you the citation. Its ordinary social significance was thus transcended. That is, the veil and a lack of a veil or a lack of a head covering in a lot of the cultures meant you were a woman of ill repute. So all of those things are transcended here. Bruce goes on, its ordinary social significance was thus transcended as man in public worship manifests his authority by leaving his head unveiled, so woman manifests hers by wearing a veil. Her status in Christ does not mean that the creation ordinances are already things of the past. She should keep her head covered because of the angels who are guardians of the created order. So we know that men and women have an equality in Christ. But the angels are observing and actually maintaining the created order. And that's their role from, as far as we can see, right from the creation onwards. So yeah, it seems like a off the cuff or off the wall reference to the angels, but no, it's vital to Paul's argument.
Yeah. So I mean, I think last time we quoted from N.T. Wright, and he was talking about like why is this not applied overall in churches today, and he's talking about culture differences into what these things mean. And so in our culture, women wearing hats is not a it's not a norm. It wouldn't signify anything to our culture, because they wouldn't know what you're doing or why you're doing it. So I thought that kind of helped me too. So I think for us today, how can you show you're honoring this? You're honoring this. I think for today, at least for me, it's attitude. You know, your disposition, your attitude to headship. Is it obvious in the way you behave, in the way you show respect and honor headship? Yeah,
I do think that what he says about the angels here fits totally with what we remarked upon last time. Well, Paul appeals not just to the traditions of the church, but in verse 14 he appeals to nature itself. Does not nature itself teach you? He does that again in Romans chapter 1. The world, that is people outside the church, learn from nature and observe the patterns of nature, where there is a created order. And there's a way that God has built into the created order that everybody observes and learns from. So he appeals to that here when he's talking about long hair. What's our link?
We're going to link to a series that I've been doing from a book called Recovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, and we'll put the first of that series on. So the playlist and the first of the series. How should XJW women think about their role in marriage, family, and church?
See you next time.